Nathan Jones is also under pressure, it seems, after losing 3-0 at Brentford at the weekend, and we'll talk to Ben Mee later. It was their 5th defeat in 6 league games since Jones took over. There have been reports of a meeting between Jones and the club's hierarchy this morning, although it's understood he took training this morning as usual. And The Athletic have reported that although no meeting was held, some at the club are not happy with these comments.
I've let the players down because I come into this club to do a job. I was recruited to do certain things, and I don't see my team in there because I've pandered a little bit. I've gone away because I've tried to accommodate what we have and tried to get the best out of the group we have without really putting my own stamp on it. And I should have by now. I really, really should have, because I came in to do a job. I was recruited for a certain way, because my teams did something really, really well. We defended the box, we were aggressive, front-footed, we put people under pressure, we put balls in the box, we pressed, we counter-pressed, we did everything really well. Statistically, there weren't many better than me in terms of that. And I've come here and I've gone away from that and tried to give them solutions for certain things. But I've got to get back to doing what we do really, really well, because once we do things well and, people say, well, your football's not this, your football's not that. I won games and I've gone away from that. And, wherever we played, we'd go after teams. I'm not seeing that in my team here now.
Why aren't you seeing that?
I blame myself. I blame myself because I should be really driving the standards. Everywhere I've been, I've drove standards. I haven't let anyone get away with anything. I've been on top of everyone. And maybe got carried away with the fact that these are Premier League players and we've got to give them this and you've got to give them that. But no more. Look, and now I have to go back and to be me and to be everything, because that's not good enough.
Why is it that you're taking responsibility on yourself rather than looking at the players then?
Because I'm the manager. I'm the manager of the football club, and the manager drives standards. And I took plenty of accolades at my previous club and everything, and manager of the year, and statistically one of the best in the country, one of the most aggressive managers in the thing, created chances, outscored people on an absolute shoestring, by the way. Pound for pound, there wasn't anyone in the country competing like we did in terms of points per pound. And I've gone away from that. And I'm saddened by it, but I take full responsibility because I should never have gone away from that.
Nathan Jones with Mark Scott. I know, let me start with Rory on this one. I know he's taken responsibility because he said it several times, but he also sounds like he's not doing things his way because he's being influenced by others.
Yeah, when people apologise that you're offended, let's say, I'm sorry if you're offended, and it's not really apologising, it's saying you're being a bit touchy, stop it. That was Nathan Jones taking responsibility while simultaneously very clearly blaming his players for not being able to, for sort of inhibiting him in some way. There's a street of self-preservation about that, I think. I can see, funny enough, with regards to what we talked about earlier, I think we do sometimes read too much into what people say in the heat of the moment. But that felt very clearly like someone saying, the problem is these kind of soft, indulged, spoilt Premier League brats, whereas I'm pure and I'm industrious and I want to work in this certain way, and I can't because they're all, or I haven't been able to because they're all too kind of wrapped in cotton wool, and now they're going to see what real work is. That's a slightly odd message to send, but I would suggest that it's not actually taking responsibility. Just as you say several times that you're taking responsibility, I'm not sure that you actually are if you make it sound like the players aren't able to do what you want them to do.
I mean, Rory there, Dion, said self-preservation. It does run through that interview. It's as if he's coming out fighting there to try and convince people.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nathan Jones should have just left it as it's my responsibility without bringing up the rest of what he brought up, I think, because it's quite easily a sure way to lose the dressing room as well, chappers, when the lads hear that and they think, well, hold a minute, the manager's just chucked us under the bus, or he doesn't trust us, or what have we done wrong? If you're the manager and you have such strong views, stick to your views and get people on side with you rather than you trying to get on side with the place you've just walked into. So he's actually adjusted to what's around him rather than him going in and taking charge. That's basically what I got from his statement there. So he's taken the blame, and I think he should just take the blame, as he said he wants to.
Is it just a man under pressure, Chris?
It's, if you're a Southampton fan, it's, is this the guy you really want to trust? I mean, that his rant after the game was just gibbering nonsense, wasn't it? I don't think I've ever said this on the Monday Night Club. I would sack him now. I don't think he's capable of managing Southampton off the back of his words. I mean, it was so odd what he said. And basically, he's trying to.
Are you saying sack him because of that interview?
Yes,
or because
yes,
of
I am, because I think
just on the not
yes,
what you've seen on the field.
And I mean, I was at the game when they beat Manchester City, and he came on and sort of tried to justify, the performances in the previous Premier League games when they had been particularly poor. I think at home they had a shot on goal against Nottingham Forest, just because He is unburdening himself of well, he blamed himself, he blamed Ralph Hasenhüttl, he blamed the current group of players, whatever they're thinking of him. I really don't know. But I think he's too emotional. Fans hang on every word a manager says, and every action has a consequence. And I just think, so for the last 3 months, he's said that he's compromised and hasn't done it his way, and now he's going to start doing it his way. I mean, is he believable? I think that he's a bluffer. And if at Southampton, if you're a Southampton fan, you want to see a guy who's in control. He could have come out after the Brentford game and just said, it's my responsibility. But he didn't say that. And then how insecure is he? Having to justify himself and rant on about being one of the best managers in European football statistically and all that nonsense. Who was aware of that? Trying to justify himself. I've never heard so much nonsense been talked after a game. I really haven't. How insecure is the guy? And if you want to stay in the Premier League, you want to see a manager who has control. Nathan Jones does not have control. So, while I sympathise with him, the job which he took over, they would have been better off sticking with Ralph Hasenhüttl. And I think the owners of the club are under massive pressure now, because when you've got a loose cannon in charge, which Nathan Jones is, who knows what's going to happen next? Is it his team who's going to be playing at the weekend, or is he going to be compromised again and listen to somebody else? Who knows what you're going to get from him? Get rid of him.
I think I agree with basically everything Chris said, and the control thing is crucial. I think it feels a bit harsh to call Nathan Jones a bluffer. Nathan Jones had a reputation.
Let me qualify that, okay? When you go into a job, okay, he knew what his role was as manager of a football club, okay? So as manager of a football club, you have to take responsibility. It's your team. So for him to go in and 3 months later and then say, well, I've listened to other people and I'm now going to do it that way. That's not the job he was brought in to do. So that's why I'm saying he's a bluffer to come out at this time and say what he said, and then throw everybody else under the bus as well, and then try and justify his record and sort of tell everybody how good he is. I mean, really?
So I would agree with that does smack of insecurity. What maybe it shows is that when we think of kind of up-and-coming managers, whether that's in the EFL or whether it's abroad, and that person looks perfect for this club, or that's the Will Still at Reims looks like the next big thing in European football. Managing in the Premier League, managing elite teams under that level of scrutiny, not just in England necessarily, across Europe as well, isn't just a test of how good your tactics are or how good your motivational ability is. There is an element of presentation, of projection, and of giving the sense that you can cope with that pressure. What that speech sounds like is Nathan Jones isn't coping very well with the pressure.
I'm not saying he isn't a good coach, Mark. Okay. Yeah. I think
because his body of work at Luton.
Yes.
I mean, he may. I have no idea on a lot of the metrics that he mentioned there, and I'm not quite sure how you do measure aggression. But maybe that's something to find out, right? So, how good Luton's metrics were compared to teams in the Bundesliga or whatever, I'm not 100% sure.
Do Southampton fans in that moment care about that?
No, maybe they don't. But we'll find out in a minute. But his body of work at Luton twice I mean, Stoke fans would say not at Stoke, but his body of work twice at Luton deserves respect. That's what I would say.
Yes.
And I'd agree with that.
Let's find out what a Southampton fan thinks. Yasmin Wiseman from the Saints Voice panel and Southampton fan joins us. Evening.
Evening. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. The other thing that I would say, and I feel like I've seen a lot of Southampton recently as well, is that on so many occasions, it's felt like you're not far off. You haven't been far off in quite a lot of games. You were very unlucky against Villa, for example. I just didn't understand the VAR decision against Villa. The Manchester City performance was great. Yeah, both legs against Newcastle. The second half at St James's, Southampton were the better side. You're a very odd team to try and judge, because on so many times you look close and yet you're bottom.
I think the thing is, we always used to have that identity of being not necessarily the underdog, but everyone used to be quite afraid to play us. Whereas now we find that, Nathan Jones has said we need to find our identity again. And I think our identity is the fact of we're predictable now. And no team or any fans that I've spoke to from another team, they're not afraid of us anymore. And looking at the scores now, well, they shouldn't be, because we have been shocking. Yes, we've been unlucky with some VAR decisions and, with some of the performances, we've missed a few sitters and things just haven't gone our way. So we have been unlucky, unfortunately.
But as a fan, are you happy to continue with this manager right now? Are you happy to say, listen, take it? You're not. You want him out?
Yeah, I have always, I've been a Southampton fan my whole life, and I have always stuck with the manager. We've had good ones, we've had not so good ones, and I've always just been like, you know what, we are there for the team, no matter what, we will be red and white. But the thing is, the difference with Nathan Jones is he's lost the fans. And the minute you lose the fans, you'll lose the changing rooms, you will lose everyone else, and he's not the manager for us. And I don't believe that, as soon as he was appointed, I thought it was very unambitious of the club to even appoint him. But I thought I'll stick with him.
That's what I was going to say, Yasmin. You talk about him losing the fans. Did he ever have the fans? And if he didn't, that's not on him, is it?
I think at the beginning, when he was first appointed, it was very on the fence. Some fans wrote him off straight away. Other fans like myself was, you have to give him a chance. It's his first time in the Premier League. Someone has to start somewhere. And just as the weeks, months have gone on, there's been little things, the comments that he's made are very unprofessional. They're not needed. And yeah, he's very defensive. He's definitely a man going through. I would say it's definitely, mentally, I think the stress is getting to him. But yeah, unfortunately, he's lost, I would say, 95% of the fans now.
Wow.
He has to. He had to help himself, though, and he had to read the room. And what he said at the weekend, if you're a Southampton fan, I really don't think there's any way back from that. And I get that, it's great when managers are interviewed after the game and you see a bit of emotion, but it's also the job of the manager to have that element of control and realise the impact of your words. It was possibly the maddest interview I've ever heard, especially when he started gibbering on what a great coach he is, and his past glories, which nobody was aware about, and trying to justify himself and how good. I just, why? What relevance did that have? Southampton are on an awful run. Why not just come out, hold your hands up and say, well, do you know what? We need to do better. But it's his responsibility as manager. I don't think he understands the role of manager well enough, or he's certainly not acting like he has done, to stay on in that job. And I tell you, I never say that, because I think all managers should be given an opportunity and enough games. And maybe he hasn't had enough games. But how can you trust him when he's told everybody for 3 months that it hasn't been, he's been compromised. It hasn't been his team or the brand of football which he wants to put out. But now trust me to lead you forward, and I'll keep you in the Premier League. They're bonkers if they trust him.
Yasmin, you were going to come in, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's even with his Everton post-match interview, we won that game, and he still brought it down and was reflecting on the past and, under Ralph, they were like this and they were like that. And he will separate himself from a win and a loss. Normally, when we lose, he's very much they lost, it's their problem. When we win, it's we won. It's brilliant. As a manager, you cannot be like that. And he will separate himself. And he has been doing that the minute he's got there. So he wasn't helping himself in regards to getting the fans on board.
Yasmin, do you, as a Southampton fan, who's he talking about? I'm tiptoeing around players. I've got to sort of adjust to certain, players and certain systems and certain people in the dressing room. He's sort of making excuses that he's had to change the way he wants to do things because of what he's walked into. And he said he kind of comes across, in my opinion, he's kind of on eggshells, and he's got to sort of make sure he does the right thing. What's he talking about? Who's he talking about?
Yeah, but half the time no one knows what he's talking about because he changes his excuses after every single match. And then 1 minute it could be about say James Ward-Prowse, obviously been there forever. Then another minute he's throwing Lavia under the bus. Not needed, 19-year-old, one of our best players. And then he's probably talking about the tea lady. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, every single interview, it's someone else's fault. Obviously, Saturday was our fault. So on behalf of Saints fans, I sincerely apologise.
Is there? You mentioned a couple of the players there. The club has gone in a different direction, hasn't it, over the last 18 months, 2 years? Do you, as Southampton fans, look at the policy of the players that have been brought in and think, yes, that's exciting for now, or do you kind of think that could be very exciting in 3 years' time? Because there are so many players, whilst they have the ability to deliver now, it also feels like there's a lot of potential being bought by Southampton.
Well, I think it's definitely like a long-term goal, and the players that they've brought in, they look fantastic. However, under Nathan Jones at the moment, some of these players aren't getting the game time, or he's playing them in the B team when we need them for our main Premier League games. We need them. We need those points. And, and then obviously we will touch on, his formation. 5 at the back don't work. But, we move, and apparently, when we change to 4 at the back, it works. But I don't understand how his mind works. So if someone could get him assessed, that'd be brilliant.
Do you, a final one, do you look at what Everton did with Sean Dyche and think missed opportunity, given the situation that you're in?
Oh, 100%. That was a missed opportunity. And as soon as they've got Sean Dyche, who he's a brilliant manager anyway, and he's a leader. He's gone back to basics. He doesn't take any crap. Instant impact. Look at how they've done so far. Whereas our instant impact, well, we're still kind of waiting for that. So,
Yasmin, I can sense the anger. Thank you very much for coming on. I hope it was cathartic in some way. Maybe not. Yasmin Wiseman from the Saints Voice panel and a Southampton fan.
I don't even know what that means. I didn't even know what that means. Cathartic. What? Explain.
Just, at the end of it, you feel better through going through the process.
Thank you very much for explaining.
Bobby, that was a great Nathan Jones rant from Chris Sutton. 100% on the money. I've been thinking the same for weeks, and I haven't got a dog in the fight as I'm a Spurs fan. Aaron, Southampton appointing Jones instead of Dyche has to go down as one of the worst footballing decisions ever made.